And just to be clear there, vaccinations have been proven to stop hospitalisation and death of COVID-19 and to reduce infection. Now let's bring in my panel of federal MPs, Liberal MP Fiona Martin and Labor MP Matt Thistlethwaite. Look, I want to start with this issue. Welcome to you both. Matt, what's your view on this? Should businesses be able to force employees to get jabbed, and not just businesses, but the government?
Well, the first thing to say, Shari, is that Australians that want the vaccine can't get it at the moment. So that's a problem. We've got a very low rate of vaccination compared to other nations. And I've got a litany of emails from people who are complaining about the vaccine rollout and want to get the vaccine. So talking about compulsory vaccination, I think, is somewhat premature. However, I think that in certain circumstances, it is reasonable for an employer to require their employees to get the vaccine if they're working in a frontline position in which the health and safety of the customers or the patients could be put at jeopardy. So in other words, if someone is working in a hospital in a frontline position, I think it's reasonable that the employer says, yes, you have to get the vaccine.
What about other companies? Because we've seen Facebook, Microsoft, CNN just sacked 3 employees who weren't vaccinated. You know, what's your view on businesses that aren't on the front line?
Well, I think it needs to be reasonable in the circumstances. And perhaps this is something that we could ask the Fair Work Commission to be the arbiter of in the future. I think it's reasonable if someone is working in a frontline position where there is a risk to the health and safety of the public. For instance, as I mentioned, a hospital or an aged care facility, I think it's reasonable that an employer would require their employees to be vaccinated. Other businesses, I think you have to look at what's reasonable in the circumstances, and perhaps this is something that we could ask the Fair Work Commission to be the arbiter of in the future.
Fiona, what we've seen so far, tradies, construction workers, they're from the hotspot area of Sydney, of course, where there is a large outbreak, but these aren't frontline workers. You know, what do you think of this? And do you think companies making vaccination mandatory could breach the Discrimination Act like the Prime Minister indicated on Friday?
Yeah, look, the national vaccination program for COVID-19 in Australia is not a mandatory vaccination program, and the Commonwealth is not going to make it mandatory. I think, like Matt said, it's reasonable for people working on the front line, particularly people in aged care and in hospitals, to be vaccinated because they're at risk of contracting COVID-19 in their workplace. But otherwise, no, I don't think that it should be compulsory in the workplace. But can I just say that there are 2 vaccinations available to all Australians, the AstraZeneca and the Pfizer vaccine. And Matt, I don't agree with you when you say that there isn't vaccinations available. We have a surplus of AstraZeneca, and the Doherty Institute modelling has indicated that they're effective at significantly reducing hospitalisation, ICU admissions and mortality. So I encourage Australians, particularly people from my state in New South Wales, to get the first vaccination that's available to them. And they can do that by going to their GP or going to the pharmacy or going to one of the vaccination hubs.
Yes.
Well, can I just respond to that? Because the problem is that people can't get the appointment for the vaccine. So if you go onto the vaccine eligibility checker, you punch in your details, you're told that you have to wait 6 weeks to 8 weeks to get your first jab. And there's people that want to get it now because they want to reduce the risk.
There is a GP website as well.
Appointment. Yeah, but in my electorate, Fiona, there's only 4 or 5 GPs that are administering it. Now, we'd love more to be able to, but
well, there's pharmacies as well,
they
Matt.
can't get the supply. They cannot get the supply from the government because the government didn't negotiate enough deals.
Now we've got a surplus of AstraZeneca, and you know, AstraZeneca was good enough for the UK. It will reduce your rate. Yeah, but this is about saving lives, Matt. This is about saving lives. Right now, the advice by ATAGI in New South Wales is to get the first available vaccine that you can get. And you know, this is about saving lives, about keeping people out of hospitals, and it's about keeping people alive.
And
I agree, people should be able to get the vaccine quickly, but they can't get it because they go onto the tracker and they're told to wait 6 weeks.
Yeah, what Matt says is correct. If people aren't eligible for the AstraZeneca, or if for medical reasons they need to get the Pfizer, it is virtually impossible to get an appointment in New South Wales prior to October or November this year. And I know because I've been sitting with people as they've been trying to refresh the New South Wales health websites. It is virtually impossible, but there are lots of AstraZeneca vaccines available. So if people are eligible to get that vaccine, that is fairly simple to get an appointment for that. Yeah,
absolutely.
Fiona Martin and Matt Thistlethwaite, thank you both very much for joining me this evening.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Shari.
Thank you, Shari.
Coming up after the break, explosive revelations and more evidence is now pointing to a lab leak in Wuhan. Stay tuned.
Shari, proudly brought to you by Visy, manufacturing Australian jobs.
If you feel like your life's pretty tickety-boo,
maybe you need to try something different, something new.
Here's the big question.
Why? Time is short and the need is great.
This will change
Everything. Can you believe it?
Isn't it amazing?
Amazing.
It's amazing.
You know it is. I know it is. We all know it is. There's a brand new skynews.com.au.
New functionality means you can search, read and watch
the latest news easier than ever before. It's all in your hands.
You're going on a journey through memory. All you have to do is follow my voice. When the war broke out, people began looking back. Nothing is more addictive